Success starts with who you are, not what you do. Welcome to Garner Growth with your host, Courtney, nurse first, entrepreneur, and your meditation and mindfulness expert. Every week, we fertilize your growth with education, inspiration, and mindful tools to help you live your fullest life and do what you came here to do. Tune in. We need you. What's up, fam? This is episode 4 of Garner Growth, and today we're going to talk about one of the more popular subjects that I've talked about in the past, and that is sex. So we're going to talk about sexual dysfunction as it relates to dysfunctional thinking, what we talked about in our last episode. So today I'm going to dive deep into how the way that you think is reflected in the way that you stroke. So you think how you stroke, and I want you to think about that. Think about it. And this is for men, women, everybody. Stroke doesn't mean, thrusting per se. It could also be the way that you are receiving stimulation, the way that you have sex. Basically, stroke equals sex in this instance, all right? So how does the way that you think affect the way that you have sex, the way that you experience it? And we're going to talk about how it happens in the body. And then also, of course, I'm going to get to some ways that you can work on that for yourself. Change those things because you are in control of your thoughts. Thoughts are voluntary, and you are in control of your sensual experiences. So, how you perceive stimulus, whether it's touch, taste, sound, you are in control. So, senses are something you can develop, and through practices like meditation, through mindfulness, through practicing being present while you're doing anything, including sex, it's going to really change the whole thing. It's like trying to test for something that like you never showed up for class. So it's like, of course, you're not going to know the answers on the test, because you never showed up for class. You didn't learn anything. So it's like with yourself, with your partners, of course, you don't know their bodies. You don't know what turns them on, what their blocks are mentally and emotionally, physically to sexual pleasure. If you have not been showing up for class, and you show up for class by being present and doing things fully there, mindfully, and also communication, right? Communicating around sexual pleasure is weird for a lot of people. And even if we do it, it's like, are you taking it in? Are you really listening? Or are you just hearing, wah, wah, wah sounds? So let's talk about that today. So if you noticed your attention span dwindling, if you noticed your memory maybe not being as sharp, your ability to learn things. And yes, this does come with, getting older, how it's easier to teach a child something than it is to teach, an older adult. But the way that our brains are set up is that it's changing. Our attention span is changing. And if your attention span, just that one thing is affected, then it's automatically going to affect your cognition or your ability to absorb information because you can't pay attention long enough to absorb it and apply it and get this full picture of what is being shared. And also too, let's make it clear, it's not just men. It's not just men having their PE, their ED in porn addiction. It's women too. Women have porn addiction. Women are becoming a lot more desensitized by toys, by high vibrational tools that don't translate to real life and also raise your threshold of stimulation. And we're going to talk about that later because that is also part of this whole pandemic of decreased intimacy and connection. And even to the point where nobody even wants it that much. Like the drive to go out and get it, the drive to want to be connected it doesn't feel as strong. And it's like this forgotten art. It's this forgotten art of connecting. And as humans, we are made this way. We're made to connect. So for us to adapt to this isolation, to social isolation, and to convenience of not having to be in contact, for us to adapt that way and then normalize that and be cool with that, that's going to affect our formation of families and societies, which is our whole existence as communal animals. So it's important. This is not something that we should just normalize and be okay with and just be like, oh, that's just how it is. No, there's some things in life that you should fight for. And being connected to each other is definitely something worth fighting for. I know for me, like I need it. I need connection. I remember during the pandemic, I would go out to the grocery store and just know, I'm gonna have an interaction with the cashier, the produce guy, whoever, and it would be great. Like it would really like meet my needs. And one thing that we have working against us is the screen. We can hide behind the screen and front like we are that person that can connect, like we are able to be intimate. Looking sexy does not translate to being a sexual being, even being able to connect through sex. Right? So that's just things we have these visual facades people are putting on their representative. And even for yourself, you forget that you are putting on a representative and that you're lying to yourself. You're not actually having a full sexual experience. You're not fully satisfied with the sex that you're having. And because of that, why would you want to keep doing it? So it makes sense that people are losing their drive and their desire to seek sexual compatibility and connection because you kind of got used to it not being a thing or being so rare. It's like, oh, you forget where the magic is. So one of the things that happens during our sexual experiences is you lose connection with what's happening. You get into your head. And you can get into your head and think about the groceries, like somebody can be going at it. Why do I keep burping? I just have So just imagine like, this guy is going at it, like he's sweating, and you know what the hell he's thinking about. Hopefully it's about like how good this is feeling. But he's going at it and you over here thinking about, do I need to go to the grocery store? Should I pump my tires next time I go to the gas station? What was she trying to say? Like, what was she really trying to say? Like, should I tell my friend about this or just keep it to myself? Is he done yet? Those are really the kind of conversations. And I'm not saying this is for myself. These are kind of things that would go in my head, especially if it was not good, not feeling good. Then it's like, okay, I'm gonna just check out. It's not bad, but it's not good to keep good enough to keep your attention. And I think that's normal because if we're watching a movie and the movie's kind of like slow, it's not keeping our engagement, it makes sense that you're gonna like start daydreaming, thinking about something else, or even go on your phone. Most people go on their phone and look at a movie nowadays, which I feel is intentional splitting. And splitting is something that we call multitasking, but there's there's an effect to splitting that is pervasive. It's not just, oh, this movie, I've seen it before, so I'm gonna put it on for background noise and then actually go on my phone. And so you're not really like watching the movie. You're really on your phone, but then at the same time, you're not fully on your phone either. So you're entering this limbo space of not being fully present with anything you're doing. And that's like the opposite of mindfulness, right? You're being mindless. And do you remember when you would watch movies and you would be like fully engaged in the experience? Like you're going on this roller coaster of emotions and excitement. And if it's boring, then yeah, you can turn it off and switch it. But you had the awareness to say, okay, this is boring. Like I don't want to watch a boring movie. But now it's like the movie could be boring because you're not going to be watching it fully anyways. And that is probably why they make shit movies nowadays. Like they're not all shit. I'm gonna go watch Dune 2 tonight. And I heard it was good. I loved the first one. It was like slow but cinematically amazing. So I'm hoping that we'll get the same thing with this one. But anyways, back to what I was saying. we want to, yeah, we have such like low standards for entertainment because we're usually getting multiple stimuli at one time in order to fulfill that need for entertainment or whatever it might be. So losing yourself in thought is also going to lose the connection because now your mind and your body are doing two separate things. Body's getting beat up, stroked, whatever you want to call it. Your mind is somewhere else. And even then, like, let's say this is the man, he's doing the stroking, he's doing all the work, and his mind is actually somewhere else too. So he's kind of on autopilot, just pumping on autopilot, which still is functional, like it's still going to get the job done, but the connection is not there. The feeling of connection being mental and emotional. And we think that all you can feel is physical because that's sensations and nerves connected to that. But you can tangibly feel mental disconnection and you can tangibly feel emotional disconnection, right? Like you have to acknowledge that. If you acknowledge that, then your tolerance for having disconnected experiences is going to go all the way down, as it should, because sex is high risk. Like it's a high risk activity for multiple reasons, right? So why do it just to like do it? Make it worth it. Like you're literally letting somebody inside you and you are inserting yourself into the flesh of another person, or whatever other ways you do it. I'm talking about classic intercourse here, so let's not go off topic. So you are physically, genetically sharing this space with somebody, energetically. You are connecting your circuits. And so, why do all that if you're not going to get pleasure out of it? If you're not going to be fully there? It's kind of like scratching an itch, you know? And scratching an itch is definitely not as good as sex. Like, and if it is, then you probably ain't doing it right. So today we're going to focus on how your monkey mind is messing up your monkey business and then what you can do about that. Because yes, you can do something about it, baby. There's always you if you know that you're the master of your ship, then whenever you find yourself in some waters, some turbulent waters or someplace you don't want to be, you're immediately gonna be like, okay, let's look at this navigation. Not like, oh, I'm stuck. Let me just sit here until, maybe a rogue wave will come along and push me in the right direction. No. No. Sometimes you do need to sit and wait, right? You need to wait out some storms at times. But even then, how do you wait out a storm is also part of your mastery. And I want you to be clear on the fact that you can change your sensory perception and you can change your awareness. So the amount of awareness you have of what you're feeling inside and physically outside, and also the amount of awareness or the amount of sensation, like the intensity of the sensation, it changes. It changes based off of your awareness. So the deeper you are engaged in a situation, the more information you're going to get out of it. Just like we were talking about watching a movie. You're watching a movie, you're going to get more of the details. You half-ass watching a movie, you're on your phone doing something else, daydreaming, you're going to get the gist, maybe the highlights, the loud noises, the screams, you'll get those things, but you're not going to get the fine details because you weren't paying enough attention. And so the same thing relates to our sensory experiences. The more attention that you have on the situation that's going on, the more you're going to get out of it. And so when you want to learn somebody's body, and I want to demystify the female body, like let's stop treating it like it's such a mystery of like intricate things that are just, it's not that complicated. There's a lot of factors, but it's not that complicated. I think the one thing that makes it complicated is the lack of an actual connection. When you have a holistic connection, mental, what's the other one? Emotional, and that physical attraction, which is important as well, then pleasure comes a lot easier. And then when you have blocks around pleasure with all those things in place, then it's like, okay, what else is going on here? What's going on in my mind that I'm not able to fully take advantage of the situation of this stimulation? Or how am I being stimulated that is not working for me? And those things are not complicated. That's just information. You take that information and you try a bunch of little different things. You try one little thing, okay, that works or it doesn't work. Try something else. But because it takes that kind of engagement and communication, we don't want to do it. Like we want to just everything be assumed and silent until we get to an orgasm. And that's just an ignorant way to go about it. Um, and then you will lose your motivation to even try anymore because now it seems too complicated. But we'll get more into that later. It's really important to talk about the arousal cycle. The arousal cycle, it varies in every person, but there is a certain pattern to being stimulated, going up in your excitement, which is mental excitement, as well as the sensory perception of feeling like increased pleasure, right? So you're going up, increased pleasure, increased excitement. And then usually you're going to reach a plateau. Plateau is like, okay, it feels good, but I'm at the place where it's going to feel good maybe for a minute. And then you're either going to go dip or you're going to go up towards a climax. And then when you go up towards the climax, typically for males who are untrained male bodies, which is like the norm, you'll have your climax and then you'll go into your refractory period, which is like, you want to disconnect. And there's hormones that come into play with that. So after a male ejaculates with evolutionary patterns, you will want to disconnect and, allow for that seeding to happen. And for women, their bodies are easier to go up and down in those waves of climax orgasm. So they can have multiple orgasms. And male bodies can too. If you guys are watching my older videos, you know what I'm talking about. So let's say most people are stuck at this excitement and then plateau. So you're sitting at the plateau, and from that plateau, it's like you should just go down. You get disinterested or you fake it so that it'll be over and y'all can go to sleep or do something else. And that is the part where we need to stop. We need to stop getting to this plateau and just like waiting for it to be over. Right? And even then, like not not making these big goals of like every time you have sex, you have to have these huge orgasms. Sometimes you have these like different kind of orgasms that are more like tingly waves. Sometimes they're like, like you're having like a clonic seizure, like it's just like stiffens up all your muscles and you lose motor control. Right? Sometimes it's like very light and airy, and then sometimes you feel like your whole aura just expanded, like it breathed and it came back. So there's different qualities, and it's not going to be this very obvious, explosive, porn-like climax. So let's get that out of our minds. That's the only kind that's valid, and that's the only kind that we want to have, where you just want to like seize up and lose all motor functions. Okay, and then especially if you're having a lot of those, but you're having them with a machine, which is like your toys, then how can you expect that with a human? Like, the last time I checked, dudes is not vibrating. Last time I checked. So if you are doing that pretty often, training your body to get used to that threshold of stimulation, then it's going to be pretty boring to get a regular stroke or to have a stroke without any clitoral vibration. So then we come back to what have you gotten yourself used to? And for men, what have you gotten yourself used to? If you're used to a very localized stimulation where you're just doing a very fast stroke on the glands, I'm trying to use like scientific words to make it sound like, more educational. So if you're doing like the short stroke of the glands, to be with a full woman, full pelvis weight, heat, softness, all that. That could be overstimulating. It could be usually overstimulating, but it could also be unfamiliar to the point where it's not hitting the threshold that you're looking for in order to reach that climax. So, and then also too, a full person requires deeper connection, not just physical hand to hand contact, right? So a full person's going to need eye contact. It's that person's going to be breathing with you or against you. Person is going to have emotional needs, and that could be too much to ask from somebody who's used to not doing none of that and just focusing on a very surface stimulation, scratching an itch until you sneeze. And I want you to think about that too, because everybody does this. If you're doing self pleasure, you're scratching an itch for the most part. Not everybody does it that way, but for the most part. And we can look at the statistics for porn sites and the most search Google searches, because you guys don't know how to use incognito. And so you look at those things and you can see that there's so many people that are watching porn, which is an outside stimulus, which is not a real person, which is readily available at any time in any amount, doing anything you want it to do. So that is a dangerous drug. It's a very dangerous drug. And it's the antagonist to our sexual evolution and our connection. Right. So that's one of the things that kill in our connection. And let's say you don't watch any of that, right? And you don't stimulate yourself at all. So you're not experiencing any sexual pleasure. That also is kind of, you don't use it, you lose it. So from lack of familiarity, you lose touch with what that feels like. And from lack of practice, you forget how to even establish those kind of connections, and then how to nourish those connections once you do get them. And that's something that I've noticed too in the dating community is you can meet somebody, you can be attracted to them physically, and you can even meet them in person, but how to nourish a connection with somebody, how to keep it going, how to continuously grow a relationship with somebody, especially if you have a physical attraction to them. Like, yeah. It's like the physical attraction is not everybody's going to have that because everybody's not attractive to everybody, right? So let's say you find somebody that you are attracted to. You have that special connection already. The thing that should be universal is knowing how to nourish a relationship with another human being and keeping a connection going. And that is what we're really talking about today is nourishing connections, physically nourishing them emotionally, mentally. And when you have dysfunctional thinking where you are compulsively thinking, you're mindlessly scrolling, and you might be just in your head a lot, then it's also going to translate to when you're with somebody, even though you want them, the desire is there, you don't know how to nourish that connection. And so we're going to talk about some specific things you can do today on how to nourish those connections. And one thing I want to point out when it comes to, let's say, synthetic sexual experience versus organic. Synthetic would be outside stimulation, outside visuals, not a real person is involved, dolls, all that stuff. Organic is people, right? Without leaning on something outside of that in order to get you there. So when you have a synthetic stimulation and even orgasm, think about it's like you're getting half of the pie, right? Whereas with organic, you're getting a full pie because you're getting your physical need met, plus you're getting emotional need met, you're getting mental connection. You're getting this holistic connection. That's the goal typically with sex, right? And we don't even know that that's the goal. So a lot of times that those things are missing or one of those things are missing. But because we're not aware of that's naturally what we seek and what gives us the greatest experience, we are settling for a lot less. And so with the synthetic stimulation, you're getting like, you're scratching an itch. You're getting a satisfaction of um, just meeting a very simple desire. That's what I call it. It's like scratching an itch. And so you look at how much effort, how much energy did you invest with that synthetic experience versus how much energy you invest in an organic experience. And no matter how easy the connection is, like, let's say you just like, you have this person and you just like, you guys are like hungry for each other, easy connection, explosive, great pleasure, all that. The energy that you invested though, that feeling, that drive towards them, that connect, that want to have them and be with them, that's an energetic investment. You've put a lot of energy into that. But what about the synthetic experience? How much energy are you putting into that? Like, we just like push the button. I don't know how these things work, but you know what I mean? You're not doing much. And you don't have to invest that much because it's a machine. It's something that is not organic. So it doesn't ask much of you. You're not accountable for it. You don't have to protect it. You don't have to hold space for it. So it's the way that we're doing it synthetically is really dulling our senses and lowering our standards for connection. So it makes sense that, you know, a lot of us are not having satisfactory experiences. And the biggest, like one of the big things with how we think that relates to how we stroke is instant gratification. This idea that whatever you want should come fast and easy at your convenience. It does synthetically, but in real life, no. Like, this is not an Amazon Prime order. You need to work, you need to invest some energy in order to get the experiences that you want, in order to have the relationship that you want. So instant gratification is like, it's killing the game for real. It's killing the game in a lot of areas, but especially for sex. And having that idea for ourselves, I should be easy to please. Performance anxiety, right? Thinking that it should be come easy for you to come. I didn't even say that. Come easy. There's a little ring to it. But yeah, this instant gratification, it really kills it for you because it puts up these expectations that are not going to be met because they're not realistic. Just like we have expectations of what women's bodies should look like if we keep getting used to manufactured bodies, right? When you have a manufactured body, you can sculpt it anyway. It can look just like a picture. But in real life, life shapes your body. You know, life shapes it. It puts marks on it. It does all those things. So when you get an organic person, organic body, it's going to have stories on it, you know, that are part of who that person is. Whereas, you know, when you have a manufactured body, it's like social media versus real life. Like, it's a filter. It's a filter over what's real. So, and also it's instant gratification, right? If I want to um, lose weight and sculpt my body through weightlifting and, you know, just exercise in general, diet, it's going to take me longer than if I were to go get the BBL, go get the lipo. It would be a lot faster results to get the synthetic version than it would be organic. Organic takes longer. And because we have instant gratification, because we have less investment in the process, then and more drive for just the results, which is instant gratification, lose out on the essence of the process. So let's talk about that. Where is there value in process versus like the value of the result? Do we really want the reward right away? And what is the reward of getting the reward right away? Or thinking about the process. What do you gain in a process on your way to the reward? All the work to get the reward is actually done in the process. So it's this bigger chunk. Like, a reward is just like, let me use my hand. Okay, this whole thing is a process, right? Your reward is my thumb, right? This is all process right here. Majority of the whole journey is process. Reward is just this thing right here. So what we're getting more out of, like our biggest investment is in the process. And the process is where we grow, where we learn, where the most nourishment happens, where all the experience happens. And it's like, having life all happen in one instance. We're going to lack the experience, like that stretching out of time, the fluctuation of good and bad. For us to even feel the good of good, we have to understand, we have to know what the bad feels like. And so it really, the whole value of a process is in the fluctuations in your experiences. And so if you try to skip over the fluctuations and experiences and you want just like the reward, then like, what are you really getting? What are you really getting? And so let's relate this to our sexual experience. If it's possible for me to lay down with somebody and in like an instant, I just lay down with you, it's like, you just, you just have this jolt of orgasm without doing anything, which is instant gratification. So where's all the kissing and like the awkward moments and the touch and the warming up and the tingles and the different parts of your body being stimulated? Like, where's all that? Like, that's what I want. That's the whole reason we do this, for that experience, not just a little jolt. I don't want to be just electrocuted. Yeah. So that is that's the difference between instant gratification and actually going through the process to get somewhere. And then when it comes to our synthetic stimulation, we got to think about first, physically, we have nerve endings. Nerve endings can be overstimulated, they can become numb, they can become this dog. Hi, Cora. You want to say hi? Come here. Come here. Yes. Say hi. Just use a biscuit, huh? Probably going to get hair all of my fingernails. So you have nerve endings that can become overstimulated. And you've experienced this for the ladies, for the women's. If you've had a girl, you had a, if you had a toy that you've used and you've used it for, longer than you were expecting. So let's say it's taking a long time to come and you keep on going to this thing. Eventually your clit dies. Like, it's just like knocking on the door, nobody's answering. And now it's like not perceiving anything. Like, even if you turn the vibration up, it's still not going to get you there because you've overstimulated it. So they've passed this threshold of you kind of like short circuited the whole process because you try to get it fast. You try to get instant gratification. You try to rush it. And this happens also with men who try to rush it and try to squeeze it out really fast by tensing up, not breathing, and going really fast. The same thing happens. Nerve endings become numb. You've overstimulated yourself, and now you're not feeling shit. And that sucks, right? But it's also, you have to take accountability for that. Like, you're trying to rush something. And the rushing comes from the root of why you're doing it. Oftentimes, this is not every time, but if you're coming from a stress mode into sex, so you're coming from a certain brainwave pattern, a certain channel, right, a frequency that is usually handling problem solving, getting out of danger. Like, these are survival mode brainwaves. And you go into sex with survival mode brainwaves. No, that doesn't work. If you look even in the animal kingdom, um, when animals mate, like, mating is very vulnerable, right? And so protection is actually a prerequisite to mate with somebody. And so that's why they have all these mating games and mating calls, rituals. Even sometimes it looks like they're fighting because you have to prove that I will be protected with you before I lay down with you, because mating, while we're mating, is very vulnerable. I can't protect myself. And with with animals like cats, where they says they have teeth in there. They lock in or you latch on. Is it cats or is it dogs? I know for sure it's dogs. I don't know shit about cats. I think it's both. But for dogs, that there's teeth, right? And so what happens is actually like when the male goes into the female, he's locked in there until he finishes his ejaculation. And then he's also stuck in there even afterwards for is it like 20 minutes? An abnormal amount of time for, relative to humans. And so, excuse me, we're getting a little dry here. And so, it's like, and so he's locked on, and y'all have seen this when people try to hose dogs apart after they've mated. You can't rush it. It's hard to get them to detach because there's a certain amount of time that he needs to stay locked in there in order to make this viable, right? And so that during that time, she's not able to protect herself. She's not able to fight for herself. And so it makes sense that protection had to be proven before they mated. Now let's bring us back to humans, which humans love to proclaim that they're animals when it's convenient, like, when it comes to having multiple partners and things like that. But then it's like, you're also like, have a certain level of consciousness that makes your thinking more complicated. You have this emotional input that complicates things and gives you more to consider in your decisions. So that's when we don't want to be animals, when we we have to consider our humanity, our sense of protection and emotion. And part of what makes us human too is that we do things that are against ourselves. We don't listen to our instincts that say no. Not all the time. And because of that, we end up having risky experiences that are not in complete alignment with ourselves. And we haven't checked off the safety and security part before getting very vulnerable with somebody. And that is actually a really key point into why we're having a lot of unsatisfactory sex, and then less desire to even do it because it's not meeting a holistic need. Before we go on with this, we have a moment from our always mess this up. I always mess this up. We want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Green Body Wellness. You can find Green Body Wellness products at greenbodywellness.com. Those are natural body products. I need to really script this, you guys. I think I'll just leave it in here as messy as it is. But Green Body Wellness is all natural body products inspired by better self-care and the natural resources from Africa, like shea butter, castor oil, coconut oil, hibiscus, argan oil, neem oil. Those are all indigenous to Africa. Did you know that? Turmeric. Yeah, so there's a lot. And I also like to include education on what is natural resources from Africa that we might not think doesn't get a lot of credit for providing a lot of our natural resources. So you can find those at greenbodywellness.com. Nourish your skin. No additives, no preservatives, no fragrances, no water, no bullshit. greenbodywellness.com. All right, so back to our talk on how you think like you stroke. So now I want to go into our last section of this, which is how would we reprogram our bodies, our minds for pleasure? I talked about this earlier with the brainwave state. What channel are you on when you are about to have sex, about to be intimate? Let's even take it away from intercourse and just being in somebody's presence and feeling deeply connected to them, to where you just want to hug inside them. That has its own sexuality to it as well. I don't even need to be inside you. I just want to hug your soul. Yeah, the thirst is real. So we want to reprogram pleasure into our bodies by establishing a mind-body connection. So your body's doing this, your mind is over here. You are disconnected. So you want to have your body and your mind doing the same thing at the same time, doing it together. you can practice that on a daily basis outside of any sexual experience. And that is through meditation. We love meditation, don't we? And there's different meditations you can do, including ones that you can do before you have sex. Because what you want to do is get out of that stress mode channel, those busy brain waves, problem solving, into relaxation, receptive mode, which is more of like our theta waves. And you want to, and you can do that through actually meditating, deep breathing. And this is the number one thing that I recommend. Breathe together. It's a beautiful thing. Not only because it, at the same time, it syncs your mind and body together. They're syncing their mind and body together. But now you're syncing your minds and your bodies together. And you create this synchronicity that even if you never went inside that person and vice versa, you would still feel deeply connected to them. And that deep connection is where the soul nourishment is. And if you have that foundation, then everything that comes after that is magical. So we want to establish mind-body connection, meditation, breath work. If you work out, you do martial arts, dancing, any mind-body connection is going to train your mind and body to work together and also give you the awareness of when they are and when they're not. And so you can be like aware of, okay, I want to do this right now, but my mind and my body are two different places. So I already know I'm going to lay down and do this and it's not going to be hit, you know? So what can we do to make it hit before we hit? And we can do that by breathing, slowing down your brain waves, exhaling slower than your inhale. And you can do that, like you can do the cyclic sign breath. That one's really popular where you inhale. So you want to really fill up your lung capacity. It's always amazing how my voice changes after I do like one deep breath. You want to inhale sharply, deeply, then you want to cap it off with another one. So that's why I did the, you'll top it off and then exhale slowly. You can do it through your mouth or your nose. And you can do this at any point during your experience, before, during, after. Breathe and stroke. Breathe and stroke. So imagine when you're in the gym and you are, right? You're lifting, you're exhaling with the exertion, you're inhaling with the, what do you call that? Retraction, when you bring it back. But anytime you exert, you're breathing out. So when we're having sex, exertion, right? So just like you're like pumping, so it's like breathing, but you don't have to like, make sure your breath is fresh too, because ain't nothing worse than having like some, I can't think of the word, but like nobody wants like muck breath in their nose. So make sure your breath is fresh, but breathing like just calmly and fully. That's all it takes. It doesn't have to be obvious. It doesn't have to be like embarrassing or weird. Just like, but if you think about it, like breathing loudly during sex is how everybody does it. Like that's what we're used to, but we do it with these like exaggerated sounds that are not actually reflecting the level of pleasure that you're getting. Sometimes they are, but you're already breathing and making loud ass noises. So do it in rhythm. That's all I'm saying. Just do it in rhythm. Sometimes do it in rhythm when you need to rebalance back to the present moment. If you find yourself thinking about something else, all off over here, mind somewhere else, body's over here, bring that mind back by breathing. Same thing if you were doing yoga. You know how they say, what do they say in yoga? You're doing yoga, you're doing a pose, and find your breath, right? When you say find your breath while you're holding a pose, which I don't know what pose this is. I think I'm doing the one where my hand's on the ground. When you breathe, you find your breath, you're bringing your breath into awareness with your body. So, and when you breathe as well, you are using your abdominal, you're engaging your abs. Your abs is where you find balance. So I don't teach yoga. I don't do it as often, but I understand core balance and working out. And so that's where I get my information from. So if you breathe, that's going to help balance your core and bring you back to your body. And where's your core, right? Your core is your gut. It has a whole nervous system there, a whole nervous system, nerves that are connected to your release of serotonin, your happiness, your joy. So if you engage that part of your body, breathing, filling up your body with energy, then you will feel grounded during your experiences. And that sense of groundedness is what's lacking if you're like, your mind is over here. So let's just simply say ground yourself. Whenever you feel disconnected, ground yourself. And by practicing that over and over and over and over, it'll get not only easier, but it'll become more automatic to the point where that's just how you do. Like that's just how you do. And you because now it's automatic, your experiences are automatically different than they used to be. And when they fail, when you're like, okay, this does not feel good. Now you have that awareness of like this doesn't feel good. Whereas before, maybe you would just go along with it because it wasn't bad. So there's a difference in that. We have to have a higher standard for ourselves when we are opening our bodies up to these experiences and different energies. So let's say you are an older person. It doesn't not always older people, but majority older men will take a pill to enhance their sexual performance. So let's say you're doing that. I'm not telling you to stop taking your supplements and change up your whole routine. But what I am saying is, why don't you add that, stack something with that called breathing. So let's say you took your pill, you can still take a few deep breaths while you wait for it to kick in. You can still breathe while you're touching in some other way, while you're massaging. You can still like hug and embrace and connect your hearts. Okay, I'm gonna share this with you. This is actually a great thing that I do with people when I hug them. Is when you hug on the left side, you're hugging heart to heart, and you hug on the right side, it's more of like a liver to liver. It's different energies. You can get a good hug, either way. But the heart to heart one feels different. It's definitely a more intimate, connected hug. And so hugging on the left side, heart to heart, breathing together, it's nice. Try it. That's your homework. That is your one homework for this week. Try a heart to heart hug with or without any sexual experience. You can do this with your child. I especially think you should do it with your child and then teach them like to know the difference, to like understand what a really like loving hug is and embraces. Hug on the side, take a deep breath together. Left side, deep breath. Can't go wrong. It feels good. Okay, there's another thing that you can do to not only ground yourself, because we talked about how the breathing is grounding. Anytime you're connecting your mind and body together, you're creating unity, you're creating a flow, and you feel balanced. But there's also this thing called vagal nerve stimulation. So your vagus nerve is like your master nerve, and it runs from like your brainstem, it innervates your face. It's right back here. So like if you rub behind your ear and in front of your ear, a lot of times you're stimulating the vagus nerve. That's why it's relaxing. Stretching your face, jaw stretches, relaxing, using your throat, gargling, singing, humming, stimulating the vagus nerve, um, deep diaphragmatic breathing, stimulating your vagus nerve, heart meditations, pelvic breathing. It goes all the way down into your pelvis. So this is your master nerve. Vagal nerve stimulation is when you are stimulating your, I did not even think about this before I was going to do this podcast, but I know this information because I've studied it for a while. So let me just think for a minute. Parasympathetic. All right. So your parasympathetic nervous system is the slower one. And I think of para as like, parachute. It's like gonna help you like float down, paraglide. What is the root word of para? I gotta look that up. But so your parasympathetic is your relax and digest, right? Your receptive mode of your nervous system, whereas your sympathetic is fight or flight, defensive mode. And believe it or not, depending on where you live, you're in defense mode majority of the day. You're in your sympathetic activation, where you're stressed, problem solving, looking out for danger. To be in your parasympathetic mode, to be in your relax and digest, where things are feeling safe, you're feeling grounded, you're feeling connected to your environment, to other people. That's something that some of us got to work at in order to get there more automatically, because that is your natural state. But the way that our society is set up, the way that our history is set up, you might be in a place where that isn't your natural state anymore. Your natural state is now fight or flight. And so even when you want to have sex, you want to be vulnerable, you're still in fight or flight. And so we have to be aware of that and then consciously change our channel so that we are in our relax and digest, our receptive mode. And you can do that by stimulating your vagus nerve. So singing, chanting, cold plunges. Do this. That's why people love a good cold plunge. Laughter. Laughter's getting that gut going, right? Prayer and meditation, where you're getting into theta mode with your brain waves, laying out in the sunlight, synthesizing vitamin D, gargling, stimulating that vagus through the throat, fellatio, stimulating that vagus through the throat. There's so many different ways. And I encourage you to find your way to do this that really works for you, but just be conscious of it. Like in the morning, if you gargle and brush your teeth, just know like, oh, when I gargle, like I'm actually stimulating my vagus nerve. So maybe I'm gonna do it a little bit longer. Or maybe I'm going to sing in the shower, intentionally knowing that it's gonna help relax me and ground me and activate my parasympathetic nervous system, because the other one's overstimulated. So I'm going to need to put a little bit more time on getting in that relax and digest mode. And then the last point of this is instant gratification. We already talked about it, but I'm going to go over it one more time. So we want to delay our gratification. Do not go with your first impulse and just jump at things. If this is something that you want to work on, this is something you want to change, right? If you're good and, you just go with your first instincts and it's been working for you, then go ahead. But if you are finding that you are going with that first impulse and then you're losing your gas real quick, you're losing interest, you're losing the fire, you're losing engorgement really quick, then you're going to want to delay gratification. Delayed gratification is going to bring more mental stimulation because you're not getting it right away. So it's like that drive to want it and to get that need met, it actually grows versus like you go on the first impulse. You really got that desire to go here up to a point where you recognize I want it and you go get it and now it's gone because you satisfied it already. So by delaying gratification, you allow for that drive to satisfaction to grow. And when the reward does come, it's actually greater, right? So hold off when you have desire, extend it with more touch, extend it with more touch and stimulation, but ground that energy by using your brakes and your accelerators. Breathing is going to be a good break for you if you happen to like go hard, go fast. If you lose sensation, you lose interest, engagement, you're going to need to ground, right? So maybe you need to like reconnect with some breathing, touch, hugging, sometimes talking, depends on what is on your mind. You might need to get it off your mind. You might need to change something in your environment, in your room, music, and then maybe you need to take some pressure off. Is there a goal? Is there an expectation to perform in this situation? How can I get rid of the expectation? I can say, I feel like pressure to do this. I feel like I'm expected to do this, and I'm afraid that I can't. Um, and then that fear of me being afraid that I can't satisfy, perform, is going to make everything just like go soft and go away. And so if I can get the reassurance that there is no goal and that you just want to be here with me and you want to be present with me and just be intimate in whatever way happens, taking the pressure off that, then I feel like I can go. I can do anything. And then with that reassurance and that acceptance of just allowing whatever happens to be what is and not pushing it to be something more, usually you'll have this release of pressure and expansion of the space. With expectations, your space is tight, it's condensed, it's not as free. But when you release expectations, there's actually more space to move around, to maybe do something funny. It was awkward, so you laughed. But if you're expected to have this like porn performance, then it's like, if it's not that, then like you get kind of tunnel vision on it, right? So open up that space, release expectations, be easy about it, and breathe. All right. We're almost reaching to the end of this. What I want to tell you guys to do is take an assessment of where you're at, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, and are your needs really being met, like holistically? Sometimes like you have this drive for physical connection, and then you'll get it, and then you still feel unsatisfied. And what that tells you is that what you actually were wanting, what your needs were more holistic. You might have emotional needs, mostly emotional needs, mental stimulation, engagement, like those things are all part of intimacy. So think about what your actual needs are and the last time you had them met and what made them satisfactory, like what made that experience satisfactory versus the ones that weren't. And you can kind of like get to know yourself and navigate that sexual space a little differently. And of course, I'm going to tell you to do what? Meditate. All right, so for this episode, your meditation assignment is going to be a pelvic breathing. And I'm going to guide you from breathing with your diaphragm, getting that awareness in your gut. And then we're going to work that energy and that awareness downwards and then cycle it back up. So it's really a body awareness exercise where you're going to be filling your body with energy and direct it into certain parts of your body and building more awareness there, building awareness in an area where you might have just let it be and not actually been fully engaged with it for a while. So we'll see. So that's your assignment. Do that meditation. It is on the guided meditation playlist, and you can watch it as many times as you want, anytime that you want. And honestly, like I would do it together. If you have somebody to do together with, then do it together. Why not? You're doing everything else together. Like if you want to get with me, then you better meditate with me. Okay? Gotta have standards, baby. So like this, okay? Like it and subscribe. I think I'm playing with you. I'm not. I'm just kidding. Can you though? Can you like it and subscribe? Because it keeps us going. It keeps me going. And even besides that, I need to know, like, what did you get out of this? What did you take away? What was helpful? What do you need more of? Or maybe even pass on a gem that you have. It's not just me. Like, I do not have all the answers. So if you have a gem that you'd like to share with everybody else, leave it in the comments. Like, we're all co-teachers in this. Please share your gems. And I will see y'all in the next episode. Leave with love.
Like, subscribe, share the growth.
If you are not ready for the day, it cannot always be nice.